Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour, a show I do twice a week where I throw a little chaos into Star Trek by reviewing a random episode. And today's episode is Voyager, Season 7, Episode 6, called Inside Man. Now, yesterday, when I did the random selection for this episode, I thought Inside Man was I was wrong about what the plot of the episode was. Not that it matters, but I thought it was a different. There's an episode where the Doctor has to hide inside of Seven's ocular node. And I thought that's what this was, but it's not. Anyway, it starts off with a captain's log, and Janeway is just saying how they're they've been getting transmissions from the Alpha Quadrant via data streams, monthly ones, and they, except for last month, so the last month they didn't receive one. So the crew is like really, the crew is anticipating this month's data stream because they've been waiting. So Harry is talking to Tom and in the corridors, and uh, he Tom blames Harry for the mess up, and he says we didn't mess anything up, we didn't receive it, and then basically he's been working with 7 and 9 to because this time there's like a bigger package, I guess. I know. I don't know what else to call it, but there's like a bigger package, and with a lot of data that they have to download and figure out. So he's working with Seven in astrometrics, and so there's a bit of a problem, and Harry is trying says that he wants to he they figure out that it's a hologram, and he wants to put it onto the holodeck, and Seven says that it could overload the system. It's not equipped for that, but he does some kind of something and is able to pull up the hologram, and it's a hologram of Reg Barkley. I think he's Lieutenant Barkley, and but he tells him to just call him Reg, and that he had been sent there by Barkley to help them out with, uh, getting them home, and uh, so that's the teaser, and then the theme, and then so he's explaining to everyone that there's in 3 days uh, there's a red they're going to be passing by a red giant star, and they can use, and at the same time Starfleet is has an array near a red giant star, and they can use, if they line up this, they call it a geodesic fold, and it kind of punches like the both they lines up with both red stars, and it punches like a hole in space that can get them to Earth. Um, so Reg So in order to distinct, because Barclay's in this too. So I'm gonna say Barclay for regular Barclay, and then Reg for the hologram. So Reg is using the doctor's emitter because they I guess Janeway had said at one point that their shields don't work on geodesic folds, and he says that the shields have come a long way since then, and he has information on how to alter their shields, and then they can go through this fold in space. But they will only have 16 seconds to take Voyager through. So then, meanwhile, Harry and Tom are talking again in the corridors, and Tom is skeptical of this plan because he mentions all the other times that they've ran into like different aliens that could have made claims that they could get them home, and all the little hijinks that they've gone throughout the past 6 years. And Harry's optimistic because he's always optimistic no matter how many times the plan doesn't work, and this has been a running theme throughout the show, throughout Voyager. Uh, and then in astrometrics, I'm getting better at saying that word. I guess once you say it enough, you kind of get it. But astrometrics, Seven and Reg are working on the plan, and he asks Seven what she will do when she gets home, and she says she'll be working on you know science stuff. I don't remember exactly what she said, but and he says, well, that's that's a waste of your talents, and I don't know if you know this, but you're famous. You're the only human that was assimilated and been you know got your humanity back, or as I call it, deborgified. It's easier for me to say. And they and she gives people hope who have lost family or friends to the Borg. And that kind of put a thought in my head. People, every time we've talked about, and Gavin Blackburn is out there in the chat, hello, and Michelle Ferry, but every time I've talked about Voyager and the Borg comes up, Gavin Blackburn has pointed out that they kind of made them weak or whatever, and that's a common critic among fans across the board. That's one thing that a lot of people can agree with. That they're too easy to defeat. It's too easy to deborgify yourself. In Voyager, there's a group of, there's the Borg kids, right, that I've talked about before. There's also a group of deborgified Borg, or aliens that kidnap Chakotay, and they're trying to get some. I forget what the plot of the episode is, but they're trying to get some sort of thing that the Borg use, that they need, or I don't remember exactly, but it's just. And then they had, I guess some people don't like the Borg Queen. I'm fine with the Borg Queen. If we see them as like a swarm of insects with a hive mind, then why wouldn't they have a queen? But I've heard some people say that, and I think when First Contact happened, I don't think Voyager had ran into the Borg yet. And it was under my impression that if the Borg Queen dies, the whole hive dies, the whole Borg dies. So when the Borg showed up for the first time on Voyager, I was kind of was like confused and kind of thought that was kind of bullshit, and because I guess in my mind, the Borg Queen was like the first Borg, and because like the Q, they were once, a humanoid race, and I always thought there, if you had to have a backstory, it would probably be like a Elon Musk type person who goes too far with technology and trying to integrate technology with organic people, and maybe he even creates like a, or she, whatever, creates like a cult of personality around them, and gets other people, or maybe it's not even Elon Musk, maybe it's like a uh, Steve Jobs type character, and they go along with, um, you know, being cyborg, and having integrated parts in on their bodies, and then it becomes so popular that you almost have like this dystopian, 1984 thing. Whereas if you don't do it, you are punished, or you lose your social status or whatever, and it just gets out of hand, and then they completely lose their humanity, and then that's when the directive to go out and seek other species, and take integrate their technology. I mean, that's sort of what I headcanoned. I don't like using those terms, but you sort of have to, when things aren't explained, and not that I need everything explained to me, but it was always like a question of like, how did the Borg come to be in my mind? So, what am I getting at? I'm getting at is that it would have been, I think, while watching this episode, I thought, what if they would have taken Seven, and maybe she's not human, and she has some sort of special, had some sort of like special ability. Maybe she was a Betazoid, and they're able to lock their personality away in their mind, and over years they're sort of like living two separate lives. One as a Borg in their brain, but they're able to also keep their personality locked away in the hopes that one day they're able to like free themselves, and that's how uh, Seven is able to deborgify herself. You know, uh, that would have been cool. I think that was just something that I came off of just like now. I mean, I just pulled it out of my ass, and then and then maybe Starfleet figures out a way to use technology to do that for humans and non, you know, um, uh, aliens that don't have psychic powers or whatever you want to call them, and then they could slowly liberate people or something like that. I don't know. That's just, again, just something. I'm not a writer. I'm not anybody. I don't do fan fiction. I've come up with ideas just as I'm watching something or think about something. I don't know. But anyway, just had to throw that out as a little idea that popped in my head. Um, that would have made it so there's bigger, so it's not so easy to deborify, you know. But anyway, so 7 says, because Reg is talking about how there would be a parade and all this stuff, and she says, well, if I can help anybody out, then I will be happy to do that. So then we get back to Starfleet communications, and we've seen if you watch Voyager, you've seen this, and so you see the building, and then it's where Barclay works, and he's under the command of I forget the name, commander. He's a doesn't matter. And but they had been working on communicating with Voyager, and at this point, Tom Tom Paris's dad, Admiral Paris, is is sort of in charge of it, I guess, or overseeing it in some fashion. And Barclay is noticing that something is preventing this data stream from reaching Voyager, and he has all these theories that he thinks it's the Borg, that they're stealing it. He thinks maybe it's the Romulans at one point. Surprised he didn't think of the Cardassians. I mean, we're still in the Dominion War, I think, at this point. Or the Dominion themselves, the Jim Hadar. But Admiral Paris, he wants to try a third time. So they did it once, it didn't work. Did it twice, it didn't work. Wants to do a third time, and the commander guy tells him that Admiral Paris wants to focus on other things, like sending letters from home and not holograms. And that frustrates him, Barclay. And then Barclay is ordered to take leave. He says, or the commander guy asks him how much leave he has, and he says, "Oh, not a whole lot, 50 or 60 days." It's a whole lot in my book, but okay. And I guess that was the joke, but because he never takes time off for himself. So then he is ordered to take a vacation. So he agrees, and then back on the Voyager, the doctor is worried about inoculations, because in order to go through this rift, they have to be inoculated. Plus, they have to modify the shields. And he thinks that the inoculations are not too much different from the ones they already have on Voyager, even though this is 6 years later, and Starfleet Medical would have already, updated these. So something is kind of fishy, but not too fishy yet. And the doctor wants to play golf with Reg, and so they agree to a day to go golfing on the holodeck. And also at the same time, Reg is using the doctor's holo emitter, so he can't leave the sick bay, and he's getting frustrated with it, and he's basically like, it's my emitter. It, he wants it back, essentially. So they're transmitting. So back on astrometrics, um, he's transmitting files with seven, and it and then the camera pans to the Midas array, which is Starfleet communications array, and then it pans a little bit further, and what do we see? It's a Ferengi ship. Dun dun dun. Um, and the Ferengi are just, well, we'll get there, but they're kind of dumb, and not all of them. Not hey, hashtag not all Ferengi. Okay, I don't want to come off as a racist, but anyway, and then we see this. We go inside the ship, and they're looking at this transmission with Janeway saying, "Hello, Starfleet. We received your transmission." Blah blah blah. And he says, the captain, the Damon, right? That's what they call him, a captain. Uh, Says to fast forward to the relevant part, and it's Reg, and he says that the the 74th rule of acquisition knowledge equals profit, and then there's a picture of Seven, and they talk about her fingers and stuff like that, and basically the idea is they're going to steal Seven's nanoprobes and sell them, and which is very profitable. But in the process, it would kill her because presumably they're taking all of her probes, and she needs them. Back on Earth, we see a beach, and we see Barkley, sorry, and he's got a couple of drinks in his hand. He's got some sun lotion on his nose, and we see Deanna Troi getting a suntan in her bathing suit, and he goes up to her, offers her drinks, and at first she refuses and doesn't realize it's Barkley. Then he explains that it's a chocolate drink, which Troi loves chocolate, and she is startled and says, "Oh, Reg," and takes her towel and covers her boobs, and I wonder why. Could it have something to do with him creating holodeck programs of her in TNG? Probably something to do with that. And she hasn't forgotten about that. And what did he do with her before he got caught? And that's probably going to be the future, folks. People taking their favorite celebrity or whatever and doing naughty things with them on with AI or whatever. So, lost my place. Reg, well, he is saying that he needs her help. She's supposed to be on vacation. Riker is supposed to meet her in a day or two. But he explains the situation, that his hologram got stolen. His boss won't really help him out unless he has evidence. And she talks to him about how the last time she saw him, Barkley, he was happy. He was like singing and dancing, and then it was at LaForge's birthday party, and said something about Data, and that he had a girlfriend. And he says, "Yes, I lost my girlfriend. I lost my hologram, and my girlfriend, and the girl." And she wants to know more about the girl, and he says that she was fascinated with his work, didn't think it was too nerdy. I'm paraphrasing. Uh, and then she starts to suspect something because she can see people. This is the one time that Troy is actually useful. One of the very few times she's actually useful with her empathic. That's the word. Empathic abilities. And basically he suspects that the girlfriend might have had something to do with it. He doesn't know why. Uh, and but he doesn't. She tells him that he should go to the commander dude and tell him, and he says that, well, without evidence, he's not going to believe me. And so she says that she'll go with him. So back on Voyager, another another log where Janeway says that Reg has become popular with the crew, and you see him in the mess hall. Everybody is around him, and he's doing like an impression of Janeway. Uh, and then, it's the actor's voice, but he's mouthing it, kind of like when Data does Picard in that one episode, Brothers, where he puts in that code, and I think I've talked about that before. But and then he does one of Tuvok, and then the doctor calls Reg to the holodeck, and on the doctor's uh, mad because this is the time that they're supposed to do their golf appointment, and Reg says that he's got to go see 709 about something, but it's nothing important. But it's not important to the mission. And the doctor is like, wants his hollow emitter back, and then he says, you're not supposed to have it when you're not doing the mission, and he grabs his club and says, like, golfing in a really mean, mad, angry voice. And so then back on Earth, the girl, her name is Leosa, which is Reg's, Barclay's ex-girlfriend. And she's being questioned by Admiral Paris, and he asked her what she does for a living, and so Barclay had said that she was a teacher. She says that she's a Dabo girl, and then Paris says, "I thought you were a teacher," and she says, "Well, I'm whatever they want me to be. If they want, if they want me to be a Bajoran Vedic, then I'll be that." And Paris basically figures out the plan is that her Ferengi boss wants to steal nanoprobes, and he figures out the plan. And then Troy wants to talk to her alone because she's not really talking. I mean, she's talking a little bit, but not really. And asks her about like how much time she's ever been like incarcerated, and she says you don't have the power to do that, and she threatens her with extended says that I can have the admiral put you in an extended psychiatric evaluation, and she says, as a Dabo girl, I know when someone's lying, and uh, Troy says, you know, are you sure you want to test that or something to that effect? And so Leosa tells them about the Ferengi ship that's out there near the Midas Array, and about the nanoprobes. So yeah, so I guess Paris didn't know about the nanoprobes, but he figured out the rest, that there's some sort of plan going on with the Ferengi. Um, and then back on Voyager, the doctor's complaining to Janeway about Reg and the incident that they had in the holodeck, and Janeway says that she hadn't seen any of this, and he's always been good around me. And then doctor says that, well, with these inoculations and um, the shield modulations and all this stuff, do you really want to trust a hologram that could be acting up? And maybe you should at least have a diagnostic. So she goes back to astrometrics and asks Seven to step outside for a minute, and talks to him about the diagnostic, and he suspects that the doctor was behind it, and she explains that it's important that he brought up a good point and stuff like that, so he agrees. And then back on Earth, in the lab, there's those little blinky lights, and I'm gonna see if I can find it. This, I don't have an image of it, but you see them in Airplane, and you see them all in Star Trek, but there's I don't know if anybody is aware of Major Grin. He has a video where he shows all the times in science fiction blinking lights. I'll see if I can find it. It's called most important lights in the universe. Yep, there it is. Now, can I share it? We'll see. I can't share it. I gotta go to mine. Keep forgetting that. I gotta go to my channel. Where am I? Here. So, check out it's kind of funny. Check out his channel and that link. It's got all the times that you see the blinking lights. But I just wanted to point that out. But that's in their lab. And Barclay is trying to basically foil the Ferengi's plans, and he's telling Troy about it, because she asks him what he's doing, and he says he's trying to foil their plans, and that he wants her to stay silent for now, because they're not going to believe him unless he has evidence. And I'm like, well, You said that before, but you were right. So why would they not believe you this time? Um, I didn't understand that. But anyway, back on the Ferengi ship, they initiate the pulse, and Barclay figures out how to. So they can't send a. Um, oh, yeah, they initiate the pulse, and then Barclay figures out how to like foil their plans, and because they can't send a message to Voyager, and they can't. There's this another stipulation that can't do. Oh, there's a ship called the Carolina, which is supposed to come and intercept the Ferengi and arrest them, but the there's they're they won't make it on time. So Reg in uh, Astrometrics, uh, so Seven sort of like suspects that something weird is going on and starts to call um, Janeway to Astrometrics, and then he does something to her, like sticks his finger in her head, and she passes out. So then the Carolina can't make it on time, and they can't send a message. So Barclay contacts the Ferengi ship and pretends it's Reg, and he has a hologram of the Voyager engine room in the background, and basically convinces them to shut down the pulse. And like I said, he says all this stuff about Hirogen hunting weapon, and Voyager has all these things that he can come, that she can come after them with. And there's been other times when the Ferengi have been tricked by something stupid, and that's why I say they're stupid. But not all of them. Rom's not, and Nog's not, and Quark is not. Quark's not stupid. He's just shisty. But they close the fold. But before doing that, there's a site-to-site transport, and Seven and Reg go into this escape pod, and Janeway is noticed about the escape pod, and tells Harry to try to beam them out of there, and basically Reg is so they don't show it, but apparently it worked, and they beamed him out of there. Seven is recovering, and Reg is deactivated, and they don't know why the what happened with him. They don't know about the Ferengi plot and all that stuff. So Harry, Tom, and B'Elanna are in the mess hall. They're eating, and Harry's all bummed out because he wanted his mom's apple pie. So Neelix made him a replicated apple pie, and he's all bummed out because he didn't get to go home. And Tom starts saying that he heard on the bridge that there was like these Iconians that have like a interdimensional portal that can get them home, and he's like, no, I don't believe you. And then B'Elanna says, no, it's true, I saw it. And he's like, really? And then she's like, yeah, you were right about him. So they were messing with him a little bit. And then back on Earth, Barclay is installing some security precautions on the new hologram, and Troy walks in and says that her and Will are having dinner, and invites him to dinner, and he says that he doesn't want to be a third nacelle, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. That term. It's it, it's important to talk about that because this is a discussion that has been going on online for the past few days. So then she says that Will brought a is bringing a friend, a woman who is an actual teacher, and they have like this jokey TOS type ending, um, which is fine. You know, I don't mind the jokey TOS endings. I kind of prefer it. So I gave this a 6.5 out of 10. Passable, a little above mid, um, because I like Barkley, and it's good to see Dwight Schultz, doing different things. Loved him in A-Team. Murdoch's my favorite character in A-Team. And it's nice to see the back and forth between Earth and Voyager, so you're not just all on Voyager. And the Ferengi, you know, we don't see much of them, and you don't really need much of them. But as far as the third nacelle thing goes, so what am I talking about? So I don't know if anybody ever watches Dave Cullen, but he made a video. So apparently, uh, Rick Berman and Brandon Braga were on the the podcast with Connor Trenier, the guy who played Trip on Enterprise, and the guy who played Malcolm Reed on Enterprise. They have a podcast. They had one before that called like the Shuttle Pod podcast or something like that. And but anyway, they bring on past Trek actors and talk about Star Trek and their experiences and different stuff like that. In this article or this podcast, well, Dave Cullen talked about it, but other people like on YouTube have been talking about this, and I've talked about this on this channel too. And they talk about how they were watching, I guess they were watching Strange New Worlds, and how in Strange New Worlds, there's an episode, this latest season, where everybody turns into Vulcans, like not everybody, but the majority of the crew. And they come across, and I might be conflating two different things. There's also another episode where Spock and Una are trying to figure out something, and Una runs into her ex-boyfriend, who's a Vulcan, played by Patton Oswalt, and he is interested in human culture, and he asks, Spock offers to teach him how to do like a high five. So I guess Brandon Braga and Rick Berman are talking about high fiving on Star Trek. Like that wouldn't be a thing in the future, and like their dialogue is very today, it's very 2025. And I've said it, and I call it, they talk like teenagers. I've said this before. So when I heard Reg or Barkley say he didn't want to be a third nacelle, that's obviously an evolution of a fifth wheel or whatever. Because they that's an evolution in language, and how when they were in charge of Star Trek, they tried to make the language so it was more timeless. So it makes sense for one thing they said, it makes sense for Captain Kirk to say double dumbass on you because he's not from the 20th century and doesn't understand. Obviously, there's curse words that still exist, but maybe in his time, it's people don't talk the same the way that they would. Like you wouldn't go up to, like Captain Picard wouldn't go up to Data and say, "Hey man, rock on," or a way to rock out on getting us through that situation. You know, just like uh, there's a joke in Dazed and Confused where a guy says "check you later, man," and they make fun of him for saying that because people don't. I mean, that was said in the '70s, and people just don't say that anymore, even in the '70s, and like in the '90s, people would say, God, I'm trying to think of, I don't know, but like in the '80s, people would say, oh, that's, or even okay, there we go, heavy, the perfect example, Michael, in Back to the Future when Marty goes back to 1955, he keeps saying heavy, and Doc says, "What's wrong in the future? There's a gravitational, something something, uh, you know, So like, that's the type of stuff that they're talking about. And when you have people in, I also call it CW writing. When you have Strange New Worlds having that type of dialogue, 10 years from now, if somebody goes back and watches that, it's going to be so outdated. Also, the they them. I use my pronoun. Use my proper pronouns. That's going to be so outdated that people are just not gonna be okay with it. I don't think, and I think when you go back and watch these shows, the '90s, TOS, Enterprise, Voyager, and D69, their dialogue is timeless. Basically, they're not like, "Yo, man," "Yo, Captain Kirk, how's it hanging?" Stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to highlight that third nacelle thing, because it proves that they were thinking. That proves what they're saying. Is that they were thinking in terms of what would future people be like, and they wouldn't use fifth wheel because they don't use wheels. They have hover everything, and a nacelle. Most ships have two nacelles, so a third one would be kind of awkward. So I just wanted to bring all of that up now, before we get to the portion of the night where fate chooses the next episode. Let's see what's being said in the chat. So, like I said, Michelle says hello and hope that I'm having a good day. I'm having a great day. I didn't have to work today, so any day you don't have to work is a great day. Hope you're doing well as well. Gavin Blackburn says hello. Darren M is in the house. See, there's another term, in the house. It's like if Cisco walks on the or Picard walks on the bridge, and instead of going, they just said, "Hey, Captain Picard in the house." The strange new lows, Gavin. Yeah. Don't ever think that it can't get any lower, because it can, especially with those idiots running the show. Gavin Blackburn says, "Imagine if they spoke in TOS uh, uh, like they did the way to Eden in every episode." Yeah, I'm not Herbert. They made that up for the show. Uh, the series would have dated badly. Star Trek is timeless. New Trek is already dated. Yeah, exactly. Good point. Um, I'm sure Gavin Blackburn also continues. I'm sure during the strike they got low grade riders who crossed the picket line, scabs. They, well, I don't know if they did or didn't on that, but they already had it. They have a science, not an officer, but a director that that's an actual scientist that they don't obviously don't listen to. They have at least one person on the writing staff that knows, I guess, the basics, and maybe even watched the old shows and try to do cohesive shit. But then I think you have other writers that are like you said, low level. They're probably just poached from CW, and I think, as a matter of fact, I think some of them were. At least I know in Discovery they were, and so you get those two clashes, and that's how we end up where we're at. The decon chamber. That's yeah. So it used to be the shuttle pod cast or something like that, and they had uh, Scott Bakula on, but then they changed it to decon chamber. I don't know why. Maybe they stopped. I don't know. It started during the pandemic, I think. And here we go. Yeah. Oh boy, as Sam Beckett would say. Let's see. Let's see. So, Inside Man, nothing's changed. Thankfully. I hate it when that happens. Random Eyes again. And this one's called Reg. So, Reg, don't screw me over. Ew. Enterprise. Season 4. Episode 3, Home. That's interesting because Admiral Teague is going to be doing Stormfront Part 2 this Saturday. I haven't been invited on there, but I'll be there in the chat. And then next Saturday will be Home. So that's kind of good, because if he invites me on for Home, I'll already have the notes ready and I won't have to sound like a dumbass. But anyway, that is the show. So I will be back tomorrow for the Dead Man Unplugged at 9 p.m. And then Monday, Casino Royale at 9 p.m., where I'll do a review. But that's it for the Red Hour for this week. Our Red Hour returns at, as you hopefully all know, Wednesday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard on the Dead Man. This is the Red Hour, or that was the Red Hour. And that's going to be it for me tonight. Hope to see you all soon. Oh, and I want to thank everyone that came out. Gavin Blackburn, Michelle Ferry, and I can't read. Darren M. God. Darren M., I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't been able to go on script on Saturdays. I try to get there when I can. But anyway, and I want to thank anybody that's out there lurking, and anybody